بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. So tonight inshallah we're going to continue with the masail of fasting, continuing where we left off, and therefore we're going to start tonight with the masail of those things that break the fast. So the Shaykh says وَمَنْ أَفْطَرَ فَعَلَيْهِ الْقَضَاء فَقَطْ. The Shaykh is saying that if a person does not fast in the day in Ramadan, either for an excuse or without an excuse, either with an excuse or without an excuse, and he is somebody who has to fast in this day, so he's not ill or something like terminally ill, then for this there's two things. All he has to do is qadha. He doesn't have to do anything more than qadha, except in one situation we mentioned it just now. So number one, all he has to do is qadha, and number two, he has to do qadha. Because some of the fuqaha in the madhab, if I'm not mistaken, Shaykh Taqiyuddin, and even outside the madhab, they say that if a person intentionally, this is for a person who intentionally does not fast a day in Ramadan, then there's no way ever to make up for this. Your only bet is tawbah. But fasting will not cover up for this if you intentionally did not fast. But the majority of the ulama, and that's what the Shaykh is saying as well, is that you have to do qadha. So you have to do qadha, and do you have to do anything more with qadha? The answer is no. And that's where it ties up to what I mentioned in the previous dars, where I said that we have four categories. Sometimes you have to do qadha alone, like here. Sometimes qadha and kaffarah. Sometimes kaffarah alone, sometimes neither of the two. And here the Shaykh is saying qadha only with the following things that break the fast. So if a person did not fast when he was supposed to fast, he does qadha only. If he did not fast with a valid excuse, then he has to do qadha only. And if he broke his fast with the following things we're going to mention, other than what comes in the next mas'ala, which is intercourse, then only qadha. Intercourse has more masail. So the Shaykh says, if he was fasting and he broke his fast, إذا كان فطره بأكل أو شرب أو قيء عمدا أو حجامة أو إمناء أو بمباشرة. So the Shaykh says that the following things are what breaks the fast. He says that if a person is fasting and he broke his fast with one of the following things, then he has to do qadha. Which are these things that break the fast? He says بِأَكْلٍ أَوْ شُرْبٍ. If a person ate or drank. So in Arabic, what is deemed eating are those things that go into the body from the mouth. What goes into the body from the mouth or the nose? What goes into the body from the mouth or the nose is deemed eating. Whether this is nutritional or not, whether it is poisonous or not, whatever it may be, if something has entered the body from the mouth or nose, that's deemed eating. And this thing, if it is something solid, if it is something liquid, it is deemed drinking. Therefore, what the Shaykh is saying, and the riwayah thaniya in the madhab, and the fatwa of many ulama, is the following. With regards to these things that enter the body, with regards to what enters the body, it is two situations. What enters the body through the mouth and nose, meaning the generally normal passages that lead to the inside of the body, which are mouth and nose. Or if something enters the body, situation 2, from anywhere else in the body, an injection, anything else that went inside the body, then those are the two situations. For situation A, it entered the body through the mouth and nose, we say that thing would break the fast. Whatever it is, nutritional or not, as I said just now, it would break the fast. If something entered through somewhere else in the body, it would only break the fast if this thing is nutritional. if this thing is nutritional, if it gives the person nutrients and he can live with just this thing, or it does the job of food and drink, then this thing is what will break the fast. If it's another type of injection that is not nutritional, then it does not break the fast. If it is something else that's gone inside the body, medicine, he's got a wound, so he's put type of medicine, ointment onto the wound, so that's gone into the body, into the bloodstream, we'd say that this is not going to break the fast because it is not nutritional. Sometimes we say medicines, they are not nutritional, but they have like sugar in it. We say that it does not break the fast because the objective of this is not nutritional. The point of the sugar is not to give nutrition. It's to help the things go inside the body. Whatever is in the medicine is to help it get sucked into the bloodstream. So where the thing that goes into the body, whether it's something put down the throat, whether it's up from one's back of the body or one's backside, or anywhere else in the body, if it's not nutritional, it does not break the fast. If it is nutritional, it breaks the fast. So that's very important to know, and that covers many of contemporary masail. Do you want to know if it breaks the fast or not? Then here's the qaida. What we mentioned here is the qaida. Of course, we mentioned many contemporary masail and more details in fiqh in the previous fasting lessons. Those can be checked in those lessons. Then the Shaykh says, أو قيء عمدا. The next thing that breaks the fast is to intentionally cause yourself to vomit. Intentionally cause yourself to vomit. Because Rasulullah said that if you are overcome with vomit, your fast does not break. But if you cause the vomit, then you have to do qada. So if you were to put your finger down your throat to cause yourself to vomit, or to smell something you know will cause you to vomit, or to like push your belly or something like that to cause you to vomit, or to see something that you know will cause you to vomit, or repeatedly look at this thing that you know will cause you to vomit, then you've caused yourself to vomit. There's a difference between that and a person is feeling nauseous. He is feeling nauseous, for example, and then he gets up, or he walks, or he does something normal, but since he's feeling nauseous, that thing has caused him to vomit. And we say essentially, if you didn't stand up or if you didn't walk, you wouldn't have vomited, so you caused yourself to vomit. But in this case, we'd say your fast is valid. Your fast continues. You can continue fasting because that's not counted as causing yourself to vomit. It's one of mainly those 4 things that I mentioned, and other similar things where if a person were to cause himself to vomit. Then when we say causing oneself to vomit, we say irrespective of the amount of vomit, the fast will break. So the moment the vomit that you've caused to come out comes into what is deemed the mouth, your fast will break. Why? We said the mouth is deemed the outside of the body. The same with the nose. That's why you can put something in your mouth, or you can do a madmada in wudu and istinshaq in wudu, and your fast will not break because you've put something into the outer of your body. So the moment this vomit comes to the outer of your body, your fast is broken. Where is the outer of the body? Where is the outer of the body in terms of the mouth? The separation from inner and outside. One of the best ways that I've come across from some of the fuqaha, they've said that where the letter kha comes out, there the back of the throat, where the back of the tongue, at the back of the tongue where the kha comes out, right? That's deemed the barrier. Behind that is deemed inside of the body. Beyond that towards the teeth is deemed outside of the body. So if the vomit came beyond the kha, beyond where the place of kha, it's now on the outside of your body. So if you had mucus coming in, the madhab is that if you had mucus, phlegm from your nose or from your chest, and you swallowed it intentionally, it will break the fast. But that mucus had to come to the outside of the mouth, beyond the letter where the kha comes out towards the teeth, and then you were to swallow it. Then that would break the fast. So you look at where the kha comes out, that's your barrier. Then the Shaykh says, or hijama, or cupping. He says if somebody were to do cupping in the day in Ramadan, his fast would break. So here, the mashhur of the madhab, they say that there are many ahadith. In fact, both riwayah, on this that I'm mentioning, the hanbali madhab, say that cupping breaks the fast. Cupping breaks the fast. They say there are many ahadith, there's almost istifad. There's ahadith of cupping, it's kind of known. The aspect of cupping breaking the fast is basically known throughout the Sahaba, etc. So we have nothing, some of them say we have nothing strong enough for us not to apply these ahadith. We mention this because the other madhahib do not deem cupping to break the fast. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, أفطر الحاجم والمحجوم. And many ahadith like that, where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, to that meaning, where he says that the person who does the cupping and the person who the cupping is done on, their fast is deemed broken. Their fast is deemed broken. So the Hanbali madhab apply this hadith. They apply this hadith. Now here, the mashhur of the madhab is that the reason for this thing breaking the fast, Allah knows best. Allah knows best. Ta'abbudi. It's like what we mentioned previously. Ta'abbudi. Therefore, we say what breaks the fast is cupping. Nothing else. Any other way of extracting blood from the body would not break the wudu, or would not break the fast. Any other way of taking blood from the body would not break the fast. Specifically cupping. So that means that if a person were to do the cupping with his mouth and something goes down his throat, his fast is broken. If something does not go down his throat, fast is broken. Because he is deemed, the hadith says, the person doing the cupping, his fast is broken. This person is deemed doing the cupping. If somebody were to do cupping with some kind of instrument that he does not even get his mouth near, we say his cupping is broken, his fasting is broken. His fast is broken. Because he is the hajim, he's the person doing the cupping. The person who the cupping is done on, the moment cupping is done on, the madhab, Shaykh Taqiyuddin says, وَظَهَرَ دَمٌ. Blood must come out. And this he says, and many of the fuqaha actually approve it because they quote it. So therefore, the moment blood is seen, then the fast of both of them are broken. The fast of both of them are broken. The riwayah thaniya, they say that this reason of this rule and this hadith is that it is mu'allal. There's actually a reason for it. And that is that if the person were to do the cupping, and most of the time he'd use his mouth. So if he were to then like suck or slurp the blood out, it may go down his throat. So to avoid that, we say that it breaks your fast. So don't get near it. And the person it's done on, we say if a lot of blood is removed from a person, then it weakens the person. He may find difficulty to complete his fast. So then we say that avoid it, because it will break the fast. But what will break the fast is not merely doing the cupping. It's when a lot of blood comes out from the person the cupping is done on, then here his fast will break. And the person doing the cupping, if he were to swallow blood, then here his fast will break. And therefore, we look at the aspect of blood being removed. Therefore, if blood is removed from the body of a person in any other way other than cupping, if the person doing the blood removal had to do it in a manner where blood would go down his mouth or nose, his fast would be broken. If not, his fast will not be broken. And the person this blood removal is done on, if a lot of blood is taken out of him where he'd be weak, his fast is broken. Therefore, can you donate blood in the month of Ramadan, etc.? We say, there's your answer according to what we mentioned. If the amount of blood that was taken out would generally not weaken a person, then we say permissible. If it may weaken the person or a person, then we say not permissible. Don't do it, it will break your fast. If you were in need, you can do it, or if you were in need of donating or taking blood, and we were to say that taking the blood would be like nutritional, and it would break your fast with the blood going inside your bloodstream, then we'd say your fast is broken, permissible for you to do it because you are in need, but do qada. And that's basically the main things that break the fast. That's basically the main things that break the fast that the Shaykh mentioned. Then the final thing that he mentions that breaks the fast is intercourse. So the Shaykh says, إِلَّا إِنْ أَفْطَرَ بِجِمَاعٍ, except if a person breaks his fast through intercourse. The except links to what? to where he began the sentence, saying if you were to break your fast, you have to do qada only. Here he's saying that unless you were to break your fast with intercourse, then here there's more. If it was without intercourse, only qada. If there is with intercourse, then you have to do the following. But just before that, we say the intercourse that breaks the fast. The intercourse that breaks the fast is that intercourse that makes ghusl obligatory. That which we mentioned in the chapter of ghusl. And those details that we mentioned there, that's what breaks the fast. That's what breaks the fast here in this chapter. I may have not mentioned it, I can't remember, but the fuqaha say if the penetration was to the front or even to the back, the rules in ghusl as well as here would apply. They also say, as in Muntaha and at-Tanqih, if two females were to do similar what a male and female were to do, and ejaculation happened, this same rule applies to them. Also, if a person, his private part, the male, his private part was cut off, they say majboob, it was cut off, it's not the full size, but he were to do similar with a male or female, and he were to ejaculate, then the same rule applies. Therefore, if a person were to ejaculate, male and female were to ejaculate, either of them, without penetration, the rules don't apply. They say that, let's say specifically from a male first of all, if this intercourse were to happen through forgetfulness, we say the male is not excused. If it were to be done out of ignorance, the male is not excused. It's because it's in the Quran. So when the fuqaha, many times they excuse a person with ignorance, and other times they don't. Many times when they don't, it's when they deem the rule to be clear. Like before slaughtering, to say the Bismillah, they say it's in the Quran to eat, to say the name of Allah. So ignorance is not allowed, it's not acceptable. The same thing here, it's in the Quran, وَلَا تُبَاشِرُهُنَّ وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا, that ayah of eating and drinking until the dawn comes in, Fajr comes in, that ayah indicates also to intercourse. فَالْآنَ بَاشِرُهُنَّ وَابْتَغُوا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ, that from now you're allowed to have intercourse with your spouses at night. The rule is abrogated of not having intercourse before, or the rule actually in the beginning of Islam was when a person broke his fast, and then at night, the moment he falls asleep, then his fast would be deemed beginning from that time. The fast would be deemed beginning at that time. So Allah abrogated that and allowed time until Fajr comes in to do everything you do if you are not fasting. So the ayah is in the Quran. So ignorance is not excused. They also say if a male were to be forced to have intercourse, he is not excused. They say it's not really perceivable that a male be forced to have intercourse. Though this could be argued, we may discuss it in the chapter of zina, because of some masail, they actually indicate to masail where a male could be forced, where a male could be having a forced intercourse without his consent, if we were to phrase it like that. They say istidkhal, the male private part were to be entered without let's say he could be sleeping and he's able in that state to penetrate, but he is not in his senses, so he was put in, the female caused him to be penetrating. So then they say that is a situation where he'd be kind of forced. So though in theory they say being forced is not perceivable in a man, some masail they have an indication. They have indication where they apply the rule of a man being coerced into intercourse, but in general they say no. And so that they mention those masail with regards to a male. Why they say forgetfulness is not an excuse. This is the madhab. The riwayah thaniya, Shaykh Taqiyuddin on his qawaid, forgetfulness is an excuse. They say because this is itlaf. This is where you would be breaking something. You'd be destroying something. Basically, it's regarding the female private part. You'd be entering it inside. So where they say if a person were to throw a stone unintentionally, forgetfully, but he broke something of somebody else, he threw the window down or he threw the window of the car, he'd be responsible for it, even though he didn't intend it, it was a mistake, etc. But this is because you broke something. It had to do with destroying something. So that's where you are accountable for it. Compared to if you forgot something where there's no breaking. Let's say in ihram, you forgetfully put perfume, or you forgetfully put perfume or wore clothing that you're not allowed to wear, but then you took it off when you remembered, or you washed the perfume when you remembered, no fidya. But if you did something where there is destroying of something, like you removed hair, that you're removing hair by forgetfulness, they say you have to give fidya. You have to give fidya. So that's what it links to that. For a female, they say that they say she could be coerced, or they say forgetfulness can be more so found in a female, So and ignorance could more so be found in a female. So here they allow ignorance. They allow ignorance for the female. And then they say in these cases, she doesn't have to give the kaffarah. If she voluntarily had intercourse with the male, knowing the rule or knowing it's Ramadan, then she has to give kaffarah as well. We say as well, why? Because she has to do qada, irrespective she has to do qada. And that links to the mas'ala that we're going to mention next. Let me mention it now in case I forget. We're going to mention that if a person were to be coerced to break his fast, then the fast would not be deemed broken. If something was done to a person where let's say he's asleep, or he's let's say under anesthetic, and something was put down his mouth or his nose without his control, we say his fast is valid. His fast is valid. It doesn't break, no qada. But there's one situation where if somebody is coerced, then you have to do qada. And that is for this mas'ala, for a female in this mas'ala, where she is coerced but her fast is broken. So if intercourse were to happen, then you would have to give kaffarah. So the Shaykh says that فَإِنَّهُ يَقْضِي, he has to do qada. And along with that, يُعْتِقُ رَقَبَةً, he has to free a slave. So either he has a slave that he can free, or he has the worth to purchase a slave. Then he has to free a slave. If he does not have a slave, or he does not have the amount to buy a slave, or slaves are not present, there's no slaves, correct Islamic slaves available. We'll mention in the future durus, maybe inheritance or on one of those other durus, where slavery in Islam, or taking somebody as a slave, there's only 3 situations allowed. And most of them are not present in a lot of slaves that are supposedly available today, of those who basically claim there are slaves available. But in general, there's no slaves available, or there's no correct Islamic slaves available. Then in that case, you go to step 2. Step 2 is فَيَصُومُ شَهْرَيْن مُتَتَابِعَيْن. In that case, he fasts 2 consecutive months. Just before we go to that, the qa'idah for all kaffarat is that when you have options, but the options are, you have to do 1. If you're not able, then you go to 2. If you're not able, you go to 3. Meaning you don't have the options which one to choose. You have to do in sequence. In that case, we look at your ability. Which one are you able to do when? At the point that the kaffarah becomes obligatory on you. At the point when kaffarah becomes obligatory on you, you have to give it out ASAP. You have to give it out as soon as possible. But we look at what's obligatory on you. Meaning, if you are not able to fast, as we mentioned, but you could feed, that's the third thing. But you haven't fed, but a week later, you are not able to fast at all. A week later, you are somehow cured. We say, you do not need to fast. Because the moment the kaffarah came on you, you were not able, the thing you were able to do is step 2 or step 3, or step 1. Step 1, if let's say there were slaves available, but the person could not find a slave, could not afford a slave. He could not afford a slave. So we say fast. Tomorrow he's able to afford a slave, we won't say it is obligatory on you to buy a slave or free a slave. You can go higher. You can go from step 2 to step 1, or step 3 to step 2 to step 1. It's permissible. You cannot go from step 2 to step 3 if step 2 is obligatory on you. Or if step 1 is obligatory on you, you cannot go to step 2. But what do we look at which point? At the point the kaffarah is obligatory on you, which one do you fall into? Are you able for number one? If you are, done, you have to do number one. If you are able for number two only, then you can do one if you are able to, but not obligatory. What's obligatory is number two. You cannot do number three. You cannot do option three. So then in this case, you fast 2 consecutive months. 2 consecutive months. With regards to this, we'll mention a couple of masail. Number one, how do you calculate months? How do you calculate these months or months? Generally, in the madhab, there's two situations when it comes to counting months. In this case, in the case of iddah, etc., you count it like this. If the kaffarah or the iddah, whatever it would be that you're counting months, and when you're counting months, then you do it like this. If the timing starts on day 1 of the lunar calendar, then you complete 2 months, or the iddah of 3 months, you complete it according to the lunar month. Irrespective whether month 1 or 2 or 2 or 3, however many days they are in these months, that doesn't matter. If you start on day 1, at the end of the month, at the end of the next month, your fasting is complete. Even if you've not fasted 60 days, you fasted 58 or 59 or 57, whatever it is, as long as you started on day 1, then that's how it is. Same with iddah. Obviously, iddah is with the timing of going into iddah. So if 10 a.m. the lady goes into iddah, she counts 3 months or 4 months, 10 days from that minute. But how would she do it? She just look at the calendar. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 10 days. And 10 days. But, so she just look, let's say Muharram, Safar, Rabi' al-Awwal, Rabi' al-Thani. In her case, 4 months and then 10 days of the next month. Done. The same for this person. If he's fasting 2 months, Muharram, Safar. Done. Irrespective how many days are in each month. Then if a person were to begin the kaffarah or the iddah, whatever it may be, after day 1, then here he has to fast 30 days he has to count each month as if there are 30 days. So he'll have to fast 30 days, 60. The lady would have to set in iddah, if she's doing months of 3 days because of talaq or something, 30, 60, 90. If it's iddah for death, then 30, 60, 90, 120, 130. Irrespective how many days are in the month, 29, 30, we don't look at that. That is the mashhur. The riwayah thaniya is that you look at that. You don't need to count 30 days, you look at the lunar month and you work with that. If it's 29, you count that as a full month and you say 1 month down for fasting or for iddah. But the mashhur, that's the riwayah thaniya, is where you look at the month. The mashhur is that if you are after day 1, you have to fast 30 days. You deem the month as being 30, and that is out of precaution. Because from the qawa'id of the Hanabila, most of the time in these situations or ibadat, is that you take safety. You take the more precaution. That's why we said for the majnoon, his fast is not valid, even if he intended it. But for the mughma alayh, we said if he intended the fast, the person who's not conscious, if he intended the fast but did not stay awake, but did not be awake for even 1 moment of the day, he did not regain consciousness, he has to do qada. The same thing we're going to say for salah. Many masail will come across. We're going to say that the qa'idah we're applying is precaution. That's why the ulama say, and a number of them say, that in mu'amalat, in transactions, one of the easiest madhab, if not the easiest to apply, is the hanbali madhab. But in ibadat, the most difficult, if not the most difficult madhab is the Hanabila. They say the Hanabila, because in the chapter of ibadat, they say we look at the haqq of Allah. So most of the time we're going towards a most difficult side. But for mu'amalat, we say it's the haqq of the slaves. So we make it easier. The masail are easier. Not we make it easier, but the way in certain situations, how do we analyze the dalil? Many times the scope for things, we apply it. And we'll come to examples. Inshallah. So that's with regards to the month. The last mas'ala is that if a person did not fast one of those days or more than one of those days in these 2 months, if he did not fast for no valid reason, we're going to mention valid reason now. If he did not fast for a valid reason, he has to restart the months of kaffarah, the days of fasting of the kaffarah. If he did not fast for a valid reason, When we say valid reason, we mean a day that the Sharia says not to fast or allows not fasting. A day the Sharia says not to fast, like Eid, either of the Eids, and the days after Eid al-Adha. We're going to mention it now. Or the day the Sharia allows not fasting, like sickness or traveling, or a lady has haid. Then we say, for those days that you missed after the 2 months have ended, if you start on day 1, or after the 60-day period has ended, then you just cover the days after. You just complete the days after. That you missed 5 days, then you complete 5 days. So that's with regards to the 2 months. The last one, if you're not able to fast, when we say not able, those masail that we mentioned that we allowed the person not to fast, the same here. Then you feed what the Shaykh says, فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَإِطْعَامُ سِتِّينَ مِسْكِينًا. If he is not able to, then he has to feed 60 poor people, 64 people. And this is how the hadith comes. This is what happened to the man who came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said, Ya Rasulullah, I am destroyed. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him why. He said that I had intercourse with my wife in the day in Ramadan. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him to free a slave. He said, I don't have and I'm not able. He told him to fast 2 months. He said, I am not able. He said, then feed 16 poor people. So here the fuqaha say that here the objective is feeding 60 people, feeding 60 poor people. Not like that fasting the days where the objective is the days irrespective of how many poor people. Here you have to give 60 poor people. They say there's a few reasons. They say number 1, because that's how it comes in the hadith, and this is it's like a kind of like a punishment, in the sense that you have to go and find 60 people and feed these 60 people. Which people? Like we mentioned earlier, like we mentioned the last dars, being eligible for zakah, the Muslims that we mentioned there, the same one here. Because it's a kaffarah. So the same like the other kaffarat. So you have to find these people. You have to go out, and it also has, and the best way is to give it yourself, like the zakah, to give it yourself. It has the benefit that you go and search and you find the situation of your Muslim brothers, to know who's poor, what's the situation, and then you give them and you feed them. And the only situation where you don't have to feed 60 is if there are not 60 poor people available around you. You're not able to get hold of 60. Then you do it by calculation. If there's 10, you feed them the worth of if there were 60. So you give each person times 6. You have to give him by like that. So you have to do it like that. Because you have to get to 60 people. You have to give the worth of 60 people. The amount you give is the same as what we mentioned previously. A mud of burr, of wheat, and half a sa' of the other 4, of barley, of dates, or cottage cheese, or raisins. And if you do not find any of these, then you give another staple that's found in the country. Or these things are found, but people do not eat them. Then you give the staple that are found in the country. Half a mud, we said either you take the liters, 750 liters, and you fill that container, and then you distribute that, or that amount, or you take that's for the mud, and for half a sa' you take 1.5 liters. Or you could weigh in kg and give 750 grams of wheat, or 1.5 kg. And we said that's approximation, but it's even a bit more. It's even a bit more than what is the actual amount. It's proportionate by a bit. And we mentioned the same masail that we mentioned. Do you give uncooked or cooked? Can you invite them over and give this kaffarah? Exactly like we mentioned in the previous lesson, the same things apply here. Then our next mas'ala, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, the Shaykh says, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that whoever forgets while he is fasting, and then he eats or drinks forgetfully, then let him complete his fast, because it is something Allah has fed the person, and a thirst that Allah has quenched of the person. So this hadith tells us that those things that break the fast that we mentioned, and on the mashhur, excluding intercourse, on the riwayah thaniya, including intercourse, you're excused for forgetfulness. You're excused for forgetfulness. And the hadith says for eating and drinking. But I said everything above, all those things that break the fast. If you are forgetful, then your fast does not break. Why do we say that? Even though the hadith says that, if you remember in our durus of the utensils, in our dars of the utensil, we mentioned the hadith where Rasulullah ﷺ prohibited gold and silver utensils for eating and drinking. But we said the rule is for complete any usage. And we mentioned that qa'idah for how to understand that hadith. The same thing here. The same thing, that same qa'idah here. So therefore, if a person were to not realize and he swallowed phlegm, or he were to bite his nails and swallow, or he were to eat, pick up something, it's the first day of Ramadan, and he ate and he swallowed, or he drank water without realizing, or by mistake, because what breaks the fast is to be conscious of your fast. That's the opposite of forgetfulness. You're conscious of your fast and you're cognizant of your fast. Or meaning the aliman amidan. So aliman, you know that you are fasting, and amidan, you did it intentionally. That breaks your fast. If you did it forgetfully or coerced, you are forced to do this thing, then your fast does not break. So if you smelled food and it just went into your insides, or perfume, something that went in through your nose to your inside, you could taste it, but you didn't intend to sniff, you didn't intend to smell it. You got a whiff, or smoke came in and you tasting it, or you walked by somebody who's smoking and you taste it in your throat. We say your fast is valid. These things did not intentionally go inside, they just went by. And what breaks your fast is something done intentionally. So forgetfully or forced, your fast does not break. Intentionally, and you are cognizant that you are fasting, your fast breaks. And the fuqaha say, to be ignorant of any of these rules that break the fast, that is not acceptable. That's the mashhur. The riwayah thani, Ibn Taymiyyah, as he does always, is he expands the rule of ignorance. That when it is acceptable ignorance, he says then it's overlooked. Acceptable ignorance. So not just anybody people have access to ilm nowadays, have access to ulama. So it's not just I didn't know the rule, and it's not that deep a rule or that intricate a rule. Then you're not excused. Masail like what we're mentioning here, it's not even the depths of what breaks the fast. So these things you are not excused. To a large extent you are not excused. So, and the ilm is available. So even the aspect of excuse, it's not just in general, I didn't know so I'm good to go. It doesn't work like that. Even for wealth and zakah, we're going to mention, if a person was ignorant of zakah or transactions, he was ignorant that his transaction is invalid. He was ignorant, that his transaction is incorrect. We say your transaction is valid. And Shaykh Taqiyuddin would say you do not have to pay the zakah if your jahl was acceptable. But we say your transaction is valid. But the barakah in the wealth would not be there. Because you did not do what Allah required you to do. You could be sinful for not having ilm, but that is could or could not be. But your transaction would say valid. And your zakah, Shaykh Taqiyuddin would say you do not need to pay your zakah if your jahl is acceptable. But the barakah won't be there. So it's important to seek ilm. It's important to have ilm, especially of the main things, not the intricacies, the main things. It's important to have ilm. Then there was one more thing the Shaykh mentioned that I forgot, I didn't read by mistake, and that is أو بإمناء بمباشرة. And that is, the last thing is a person releasing sperm or madhi, many or madhi. And it reminded me because one of the ahadith with similar wording where Allah Azza wa Jal says that fasting is for me. The fasting is for me. Allah Azza wa Jal says that the person, the mu'min, what he does when he fasts is he leaves off food and drink and his sexual desires for me. He leaves off his food and drink and his sexual desires for me. So with sexual desires, usually they get satisfied through three ways. Intercourse, releasing of mani or madhi. So we mentioned intercourse, it breaks the fast. Right? And if ejaculation happened without penetration, it breaks the fast, but no kaffarah. And if penetration were to happen, as we mentioned of ghusl, as we mentioned in the chapter of ghusl, but no ejaculation, it breaks the fast as well. And with that, it's a day in Ramadan, if you were to have intercourse, when you should be fasting. While either you are fasting or it's a day you should be fasting, but you are not fasting. You should be fasting like, let's say, the day of Shak. The day of Shak. The day of Shak, and it turned out to be from Ramadan. It's a day you should have imsak. You should not be fasting. Or you are not fasting for no reason, and you had intercourse, the kaffarah is on you, because you should be fasting. And this kaffarah is specific to Ramadan, not a qadha of Ramadan. Specifically to Ramadan because of the sacredness of the month. But this kaffarah does not apply to somebody who is allowed not to fast. Allowed not to fast. So allowed not to fast even if he had intercourse, to break this fast that he is not obligatory on him to fast. So a traveler, he's fasting, and then he had intercourse. We say this kaffarah is not obligatory on him. Not obligatory on him. If you had to fast this day, if you are fasting or had to fast this day, this when this kaffarah is on you. So back to our mas'ala, we said 3 things: intercourse. Number 2, if a person were to release many, or mathi, by physical touching, either him touching himself or her touching herself, or somebody else touching this person sexually, right? And there's a release of many or mathi through that touching. Many would definitely be sexually, and mathi if it happened to be sexually. And then the last thing is with looking. If a person looked more than once, and he released many, then his fast would be broken. So not if he released mathi, his fast would not be broken, and nor so if he looked once and he released many, his fast would not be broken. That means that if a person were to, for example, have a wet dream, his fast would be intact. Or if a person were to release many or mathi through thinking, through thoughts, his fast would be valid. So that's an important mas'ala. And we end there. We'll continue inshallah with the next few masail. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to teach us that which benefits us, and benefit us with that which He teaches us. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.